The tennis world had just watched Alex walk off the Berlin Open center court. Her remarkable Cinderella run had come to an emotional end following a hard-fought semi-final loss to Linda Noskova. Fans were still trying to process the disappointment, wondering what might have been. But Alex had no intention of dwelling on the defeat. Instead of returning home to Manila or retreating for a few days of rest, she immediately turned her attention to the biggest challenge ahead. Less than 48 hours after her Berlin exit, Alex arrived at Wimbledon carrying something few people expected. It wasn't exhaustion. It wasn't frustration. It wasn't regret. It was determination. Her arrival quickly became a talking point throughout the tennis world. Players, coaches, and fans alike were surprised by the confidence and intensity she carried with her after such a heartbreaking loss. Questions began circulating almost immediately. What had Alex done to recover so quickly? Why did she suddenly look like one of the most dangerous dark horses heading into Wimbledon? As the prestigious Grand Slam prepared to welcome the sport's biggest stars, Alex's presence created a buzz that few had anticipated. On June 22, 2026, all eyes were on Wimbledon as players arrived for the tournament. The grounds were already filled with anticipation, excitement, and the kind of electric energy that only the sport's most iconic event can generate. But when Alex made her appearance, the atmosphere seemed to shift. Those expecting to see a player still recovering from a painful defeat were left stunned. Alex looked completely different. She wasn't broken by the loss in Berlin. She wasn't tired or discouraged. Instead, she appeared focused, energized, and ready for the challenge ahead, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who believed her best tennis was still yet to come. The player who had walked off Berlin's Steffi Graf Stadium just 48 hours earlier after a heartbreaking semi-final defeat seemed like an entirely different person. Following the emotional end to her impressive run, many had expected Alex to take time to recover and regroup. Instead, she arrived at Wimbledon carrying a renewed sense of purpose. With her racket bag over her shoulder, a determined expression on her face, and the disappointment of Berlin firmly behind her, Alex looked like a player ready for the biggest challenge of her career. The tears that had followed her defeat had been replaced by focus, confidence, and the unmistakable mindset of someone eager to prove that her story was far from over. The buzz surrounding her arrival grew almost instantly. Fans, analysts, and fellow players couldn't believe how quickly she had turned the page after such an emotional loss. The reason was clear. Alex's remarkable performance in Berlin had elevated her to a career-high position in the world rankings and secured a historic Wimbledon seeding, making her the first Filipino player ever to earn a singles seed at a Grand Slam. The achievement marked another milestone in a career that seemed to be reaching new heights with every tournament. As she stepped onto the grounds of the All England Club, it became obvious that Alex wasn't arriving at Wimbledon simply hoping to participate. She was arriving with momentum, confidence, and growing expectations. The excitement intensified even further when attention shifted to her doubles campaign. Alex was set to share the court with seven-time Grand Slam champion Venus Williams, creating one of the most talked-about partnerships of the tournament. The combination of a rising young star and one of the sport's greatest legends immediately captured the imagination of tennis fans around the world. It was more than just a doubles team. It was a meeting of generations, experience, and ambition, all unfolding on the sport's most prestigious stage. The Wimbledon Open had already become one of the most anticipated events of the tennis season, and Alex's arrival only added to the growing excitement surrounding the tournament. What had once been viewed as a valuable opportunity to gain experience on grass had suddenly transformed into a historic moment for Filipino tennis. Just weeks earlier, few could have predicted the remarkable rise Alex would experience during the grass court season. But after her stunning performances leading into Wimbledon, everything had changed. Alex arrived at the All England Club carrying far more than expectations. She arrived as one of the breakout stars of the summer. Her incredible run had propelled her from number 35 to number 30 in the live rankings, securing a historic Wimbledon seeding and making her the first Filipino player ever to earn a singles seed at a Grand Slam tournament. It was a milestone that reflected not only her talent, but also the rapid progress she had made against some of the sport's biggest names. The victories that fueled her rise were impossible to ignore. Alex had defeated a world number 2, overcome a former world number 3, and knocked off one of the hottest players on tour. With every win, her confidence grew and her reputation expanded. By the time she stepped onto the grounds of Wimbledon, she was no longer simply a promising young player looking to gain experience. She had become a genuine contender, a player capable of challenging the very best on tennis's biggest stage. What awaited Alex at Wimbledon was no longer just another tournament. It was an opportunity to continue making history. The pressure would be greater, the spotlight brighter, and the expectations higher than ever before. Yet, after everything she had accomplished during the grass court season, Alex entered Wimbledon with belief, momentum, and the knowledge that she belonged among the elite. She was no longer just a rising star. She had become one of the most compelling stories in the entire tournament. Alex was no longer viewed as an underdog. She had become a legitimate threat. Standing across the net in her opening round match at Wimbledon was a player who understood exactly how dangerous she had become. Elise Mertens, the experienced Belgian veteran ranked number 24 in the world, had defeated Alex twice before. Their most recent encounter at the Madrid Open just 2 months earlier had been particularly painful, a one-sided defeat that exposed the gap between where Alex was and where she wanted to be. Mertens had controlled that match from start to finish, leaving Alex searching for answers. But Wimbledon was a completely different stage. The grass courts presented a new challenge. And more importantly, Alex was no longer the same player who had walked onto the court in Madrid. The confidence she had built during her remarkable grass court campaign had transformed her game and her mindset. The player arriving at Wimbledon carried momentum, belief, and the experience of having defeated some of the biggest names in women's tennis. What once looked like a difficult first-round matchup now felt like an opportunity for redemption, an opportunity to prove how far she had come. The tennis world took notice. The Wimbledon draw was loaded with elite talent. Yet much of the attention centered on Alex, whose rapid rise had become one of the most compelling stories in the sport. As anticipation grew around her singles campaign, another announcement sent shockwaves through the tennis community. Alongside her Wimbledon singles journey came a partnership that few could have imagined. Next to Alex's name in the doubles competition appeared one of the most iconic names in tennis history, Venus Williams. A 7-time Grand Slam singles champion, a multiple-time Wimbledon champion, and one of the most influential figures the sport has ever seen, Venus had inspired generations of players around the world. Her achievements on grass courts were legendary, and her impact on women's tennis extended far beyond trophies and titles. The pairing of Alex and Venus instantly became one of the biggest talking points of the tournament. For Alex, it represented a rare opportunity to share the court with a living legend whose career had helped shape modern tennis. For fans, it felt like the passing of a torch between generations. The partnership marked the first time the two would officially compete together, creating a dream scenario that captured global attention. From Manila to London and across the tennis world, excitement exploded as supporters imagined what the young Filipino star and the legendary champion could accomplish side by side. What began as anticipation surrounding Alex's Wimbledon debut had now evolved into something even bigger, a historic moment that connected the future of tennis with one of its greatest icons. The announcement sparked an immediate wave of excitement across the tennis world. Fans flooded social media with emotional reactions as they tried to process the reality of seeing Alex share the court with one of the sport's most iconic figures. One fan wrote, "Venus Williams is a legend and now she's partnering with Alex. Someone tell me this isn't a dream." Another posted, "From practicing as a young girl in the Philippines to standing beside Venus Williams on one of tennis's biggest stages. What a journey." Others described the partnership as a full-circle moment, celebrating how far Alex had come in such a short period of time. For Alex, the opportunity meant far more than simply playing doubles at Wimbledon. It represented the fulfillment of a dream she had carried for years. Earlier in the season, she had spoken openly about her admiration for the Williams sisters and the impact they had on women's tennis. Alex praised Venus as a trailblazer whose influence extended far beyond championships and trophies. She spoke about how players like Venus helped transform women's sports and inspired an entire generation to dream bigger. Now, instead of watching from afar, she would be standing beside her as a teammate. Their opening round match immediately became one of the most anticipated doubles contests of the tournament. But the fascination surrounding the partnership went beyond rankings, results, or scores. It was the meeting of two different generations of tennis excellence. On one side stood Venus, a champion whose career had spanned decades and helped shape the modern era of the sport. On the other stood Alex, one of tennis's brightest young stars, carrying the hopes of an entire nation and representing the future of the game. Tennis analysts quickly highlighted why the partnership was so compelling. The combination of experience and youth created a unique dynamic rarely seen on the professional tour. Venus had competed on the biggest stages imaginable, handling pressure, expectations, and historic moments throughout her legendary career. Alex, meanwhile, was experiencing a breakthrough season that had elevated her into the global spotlight. The opportunity to learn directly from one of the greatest champions in tennis history was invaluable. As Wimbledon approached, the partnership became about much more than doubles tennis. It became a story of mentorship, inspiration, and the passing of knowledge from one generation to the next. Every practice session, every conversation, and every point played together carried significance. Fans around the world knew they were witnessing something special, a rising star learning alongside a legend. And as Alex prepared for the biggest matches of her career, there was perhaps no better guide than Venus Williams standing beside her on the court. The opportunity to learn from Venus was invaluable. For Alex, this partnership represented much more than a doubles match. It was a chance to share the court with one of the players she had admired throughout her life. The lessons extended far beyond tactics and strategy. Venus had spent decades competing under the brightest lights in tennis, overcoming challenges, handling pressure, and setting standards that inspired generations. Now, Alex had the rare privilege of experiencing that knowledge firsthand. It was the realization of a childhood dream, one she had spoken about openly long before it became reality. The tennis community quickly embraced the story. Players, analysts, and fans alike celebrated the unlikely partnership between a living legend and one of the sport's fastest rising stars. Many pointed to the unique blend of experience and youthful ambition that made the duo so compelling. The excitement surrounding their opening round doubles match only continued to grow as tennis fans around the world prepared to watch two generations unite on the same side of the net. Yet, while the doubles partnership captured headlines, Alex's singles campaign was creating an even bigger statement. Days later, she stepped onto the court and delivered one of the most important victories of her career. The scoreboard told the story, a straight sets triumph over Elise Mertens. The win was decisive, convincing, and deeply symbolic. Just weeks earlier, Mertens had handed Alex a painful defeat in Madrid. This time, the result was completely different. Alex controlled the match, played with confidence, and secured the victory that many believed confirmed her arrival as a legitimate force on the WTA Tour. The significance of the win stretched beyond simple revenge. It was validation. Critics who had questioned whether her remarkable run during the grass court season was sustainable suddenly had fewer arguments to make. Alex had already proven herself against elite competition, but defeating a player who had previously dominated her demonstrated how much her game had evolved. The improvements were visible in every aspect of her performance, her movement, her confidence, her shot selection, and perhaps most importantly, her belief in herself. The timing could not have been better. Wimbledon was just around the corner, and Alex's ranking continued to rise. After beginning the grass court swing outside the top 30, she had surged into seeding position through a series of breakthrough performances. Her latest victories strengthened her standing even further and ensured she would arrive at the All-England club carrying significant momentum. Every win reinforced the growing belief that she belonged among the sport's elite. But rankings and milestones were only part of the story. Throughout her rise, Alex remained focused on something larger than individual achievements. She had often spoken about the pride she felt representing the Philippines on the global stage. Every victory carried meaning not only for her career, but also for the millions of fans supporting her journey. As Wimbledon approached, that sense of purpose remained at the center of everything she did. The wins, the rankings, and the recognition were important, but for Alex, the ultimate motivation remained unchanged: to compete with pride, inspire the next generation, and continue making history for Philippine tennis. The Wimbledon Open had become the final grass court warm-up before Wimbledon itself. And Alex, often referred to as ISA in headlines, arrived with momentum, pressure, and expectation all colliding at once. She had entered the tournament as a wild card in the singles draw while also forming a sensational doubles partnership with Venus Williams. It was a dream pairing, marking the first time the two would officially compete together on the same side of the net. Both players had received wild card entries into the main draw. But for Alex, this was something far beyond an invitation. It was a milestone she had once only imagined from afar. Growing up, Alex had watched the Williams sisters dominate Wimbledon, studying their power, discipline, and precision. She had built parts of her own game inspired by them, never imagining that one day she would share a court with one of them, not as an opponent, but as a partner. Earlier in the season, she had described the moment with pure honesty. "I am really excited. Venus is such a trailblazer. She has done so much for the sport and she continues to inspire everyone." Now that admiration had turned into reality. Their opening doubles match was set against Alexandra Osborne and Catherine Harrison, scheduled for Tuesday no earlier than 5 p.m. Manila time. But the significance of the pairing went far beyond the scoreboard. For a 46-year-old legend and a 21-year-old rising star, this was about legacy and mentorship as much as competition. It was about experience meeting ambition and history meeting the future. Every point they played carried the weight of something larger than tennis itself, the passing of knowledge from one generation to the next. While attention focused on the doubles draw, Alex's journey in singles continued to build towards something even bigger. The road to Wimbledon had already been shaped by her breakthrough performances across the grass court season. The Bad Homburg Open had been just the beginning, and Wimbledon was now the destination. The All England Club, the most prestigious stage in tennis, awaited on June 29th, where Alex would walk onto the courts as a seeded player for the first time in her career. That achievement alone carried historic weight. She had become the first Filipino player ever to earn a singles seed at a Grand Slam, a milestone that symbolized years of progress and sacrifice. With it came the hopes of over 115 million Filipinos, a responsibility she had grown used to carrying. Through injuries, rankings pressure, travel demands, and moments of doubt, she had continued to push forward. From Birmingham to Berlin, every match had shaped her into the player she was becoming. Now, standing on the edge of Wimbledon, she was no longer just a rising talent. She was a contender stepping into the sport's biggest arena. The grass court season was still alive. The Bad Homburg storyline was still unfolding. And Wimbledon was just ahead. Through it all, Alex remained steady. The journey had already defied expectations, but she was not finished yet. The next challenge was always waiting, and she was ready for it. The Filipina sensation arrived at the Bad Homburg Open not as a defeated player, but as a woman on a mission. Alex entered the WTA 500 event on a main draw wild card and was immediately set for a high-stakes opening round clash against world number 24 Elise Mertens. It was a matchup that carried history, tension, and unfinished business. But Alex was no longer the same player who had once struggled for answers against top-tier opposition. Her rise had been steady, calculated, and undeniable. She had climbed from world number 35 to number 30 in the rankings, just one spot shy of her career high of number 29, achieved in March 2026. More importantly, she had now secured a place comfortably inside the top 32, guaranteeing her a seated position at the All England Club. It was a milestone that reflected not just form, but consistency across one of the most demanding stretches of her career. Every match, every point, and every breakthrough had brought her closer to tennis's biggest stage. But the biggest shock of the tournament came when the doubles draw was released. Alex would partner with none other than 7-time Grand Slam champion Venus Williams.